Welcome everyone to our four-part Shelter in Faith series. You've joined part 3, Separation and Connection. This is a partnership between the Santa Cruz Public Libraries and the Watsonville Public Library. We have a few housekeeping slides, and then I'll turn it over to County Supervisor Leopold and our esteemed guests for today. This event is being recorded. Your microphone is muted for the entire presentation. You do not need a microphone, camera, or a screen if you only want to listen to the music or listen to the meeting, as this meeting is accessible by landline or mobile phone. If you need assistance, please call the library's telephone information line at 831-427-7713. To join this presentation using a telephone only, dial any of the following numbers. I'll read a couple of them off. 669-900-6833 or 301-715-8592. You'll be prompted to enter the webinar ID of 944-6810-8051 and then the pound sign or the number sign. The Q&A period will begin at about 11 a.m. If you're joining by computer or a larger mobile device, you'll see the Q&A icon on the attendee control bar. Tapping on the icon allows you to type your question or your comment. If you have a question for a specific panelist, please type their name in ahead of your question. In the lower left corner, you'll see audio settings, then you'll see the Q&A icon, and then you'll see Leave Meeting in red letters. Once the presentation begins, if you're joining by a computer, to see all of the panelists, you may need to use the Zoom control bar and select Gallery View. Depending on the size of your mobile device screen, you also might need to scroll over to view whomever's speaking. And then finally, if you're accessing this meeting via the web browser only, you will not see all panelists at one time. You'll only see the panelists speaking. We'll now transition to the panelists in the gallery view and Supervisor Leopold and our esteemed guests for today. Please stand by.
Good morning. My name is John Leopold. I'm a Santa Cruz County Supervisor. I have the great pleasure of representing the 1st District of Live Oak, Soquel, Santa Cruz Gardens, and the Summit area, as well as parts of the city of Santa Cruz, Capitola, and Scotts Valley. I'm honored to be part of this webinar series from the Santa Cruz Public Library, and I really appreciate their efforts to try to get out and connect with people during this crazy time that we call the COVID-19 crisis. You know, we're at a really weird time in history where we have this virus that's spreading throughout the world, and our response, which people have been great about, which is distancing themselves from each other and sheltering in place. And that has proven to be very successful in slowing the spread of the virus through Santa Cruz County. But there's a cost to that. And one of the costs is that while we're flattening the curve, we're also distancing ourselves from the relationships that keep us strong and ongoing. And although we can do virtual meetings like this one, we're fortunate that we live in an age where that can happen. And we can see each other and we can get updates. We can't hug each other. We can't shake hands. We can't enjoy that physical contact. That's such a important part of our human experience. So the Santa Cruz Public Library and the Watsonville Public Library have invited several local leaders representing diverse faith traditions to help give voice and constructive perspective to these concerns that the community is facing. For this 3rd part of the series, we'll be discussing the relevant topic of separation and connection while sheltering in place. And we have a great panel of speakers here today that I'll briefly introduce, and then we'll go around and have them make introductions. Joining us today is the Reverend and Captain Ryan Althaus from the Santa Cruz Unitarian Universalist Church. Barb Bechtold, who's a pastor at Watsonville Church of the Nazarene, Reverend Eugene Bush from the Santa Cruz Zen Center, and Reverend Tracy Wells Miller from the Episcopal Church of St. John the Baptist. And I'm hoping they'll give a brief introduction, and then we'll get to some of the questions that we have, and then there'll be a chance for you to ask questions at the end. If we could start with Ryan, just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move around.
Sorry, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for calling me Ryan, not Reverend. It's Monday. I try to ditch the Reverend title after Sundays. So I moved to Santa Cruz actually as the development director of the Homeless Garden Project. So outside of a church setting in general. But I've been ordained by the National Presbyterian Church, USA, and I work with them heading up a lot of their hunger and homelessness alleviation for the region. So I bounce around those churches a fair amount, and then head up a lot of the youth spiritual exploration and such at the Unitarian Universalist Church here in Santa Cruz County, which is a blast. And fun enough, working alongside of the county and looking at some of the homelessness issues, we do a lot of work with special needs populations. I've got my own program called Sweaty Sheep Ministries, which is kind of a local nonprofit geared at utilizing recreation and art as a means of creating social and faith bridges across different barriers in our society. But picked up the title 2 years ago of the County Minister of Loneliness, which is a play off Great Britain. But yeah, a couple different hats. Like I said, today's actually a visor with dreadlocks, so don't really fit the form of too many ministers in town, but having fun. So thanks so much for having me.
Well, for a person with so many hats, it's hard to get that hair underneath that hat. So great to have you here. Mother Tracy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am the priest at the Episcopal Church in Aptos, the Episcopal Church of St. John the Baptist, also known as St. John's Aptos for short. And we are located right across from the new skate park in Seacliff, which is now closed, unfortunately. And you may know the Episcopal Church as we are sometimes called Catholic Light. All of the ritual, none of the guilt. We are very traditional in our worship style, but very modern in our social activism and in our the way that we live out our faith. So we have, obviously, women can be priests, gay people can be priests and married. So we span both sides of the traditional and contemporary coin there, and proud to be an Episcopalian and to represent our community here today. Thanks.
Great to have you here. Great to have you. Jean Bush, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the faith that you're representing?
I'm a priest and a teacher in the Soto Zen Buddhist lineage. The leader that came from Japan to the US, Shunryu Suzuki, and established San Francisco Zen Center. So I'm part of that lineage. I'm also a retired public school teacher. I served in the bilingual program in this county for 37 years. Watsonville people will recognize these schools where I taught: Sal Si Puedes, H.A. Hyde, Alianza, also Aptos High School and Santa Cruz High School, as well as a brief stint at UCSC and the Santa Cruz City Schools District Office, and ARC Independent Studies most recently. All of my teaching experience influences my approach to teaching this practice we call Zen, which is about being supportive, encouraging, meeting people where they are. During most of my public school teaching years, I did my training right here in Santa Cruz at Santa Cruz Zen Center, with a brief stint at a cloistered monastic setting for training. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. Pastor Barb, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the faith that you're representing?
Thank you, and thank you so much for inviting me to be along. The Church of the Nazarene was started in the early 1900s. Probably the best way to explain the Church of the Nazarene is we got our starts in the gutters of Los Angeles. And a really cool guy named Phineas took off into the gutters and truly met people We are a proud holiness denomination, and our whole focus is all about loving the way Jesus does. So the Church of the Nazarene, like I said, has been around since the early 1900s. We are a breakoff of Methodism, and so very, very long line of Jesus freaks and just loving the world like he would. My husband and I have been in ministry together since 1995. However, this is my first senior pastorate. My husband is an Army chaplain, and so we have moved often with either the pastorate or with the Army. And so we finally settled here, and this position came available. So I get to be married to Charlie Chaplin and still love the people of Watsonville. And it's a win-win. So thanks again for having me. And it is such a great honor to be on a panel with all of you. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Barb. And we are all blessed being here together and having the technology to be able to share this conversation with the public. I was wondering if we could just talk about what your own faith tradition talks about the practice of something like physically separating yourself from others for the common good. Does social distancing exist in stories or teachings of your translation? And if it does, what's the circumstances? And I'm going to start with Mother Tracy.
Well, you know, I think it's interesting as I was reflecting back on the stories of Scripture. The first thing that came to mind from the time of Jesus was, of course, the lepers who were separated from the community because of a very contagious illness and were really ostracized. And in a sense, you know, the stories of Jesus healing lepers and going to them and touching them sort of are kind of the opposite of social distancing, but going to the people that everyone else wouldn't go to. But so I've reflected on that a bit in the context of our current situation. And I think it's, you know, it's perhaps not a great idea for us to say, well, we should all be like Jesus. Let's just go ignore social distancing and go touch everybody. But I think, you know, our healthcare workers are those hands and feet of Jesus right now as they are going to touch those that the rest of the world is staying away from. So that comes to mind. And another thing that came to mind was more in the Hebrew scriptures, where women were secluded from the rest of the community while they were menstruating. So that was, of course, there was nothing contagious about that, but in an understanding of, you know, cleanness and uncleanness and separation and the importance of maintaining separateness. I think in terms of the way that I've always interpreted those passages, I've always seen those separations as a negative thing, like society was ostracizing people or creating these separations. So thinking about those in the light of this current situation where separation is the faithful thing to do is kind of an interesting twist on the way that I've always read some of these traditional passages.
Oh yeah, those are good points out of the Bible to remind us of, and as someone who comes from the Jewish faith, there's a lot of similarities there. How about Pastor Barb? How do you reflect on this from your teaching traditions or your faith?
You know, it was very early on in the beginning of the seclusion where I was one of those that would say, well, I'm willing to give one if you're willing to accept one. And I realized very quickly what a detriment that indeed was. And Scripture says, love the Lord your God first, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And I was not being a very good, loving neighbor every time I extended my hands, only because we were not even sure initially, how these things were being spread. There was a reason why. We can go back to the Spanish flu photographs and see all the masks, and we know that those things worked then. And loving our neighbor means taking care of our neighbor.
Sure.
We found a very quick and easy way to overcome that. If you come around, I'll hand you a hula hoop. I get a hula hoop, you get a hula hoop. You have to hold it in front of you. I have to hold mine in front of me. And we were able to give virtual hugs with hula hoops. And yet we still had a giggle, and we maintained that 6 feet. So it is very difficult when the rest of the world is saying no, no, no. And then from a pastor's perspective, you know, all we can do and all we want to do is rush in. And that's not always loving our neighbor.
Sure, sure. Gene, in the Zen tradition, is there a part of social distancing or for the common good?
Absolutely. If you picture for a moment kind of the stereotyped image of a wise person sitting on a mountain alone, or maybe even more contemporary, a wise individual, or at least a robed individual sitting in front of a very well manicured rock garden, you have kind of the stereotyped image of alone, people sitting by themselves in contemplative life, prayerful life. So we have this too in daily practice, usually in a temple setting, sitting on our cushions, apparently alone, but amongst each other. So I would just take the concept of hermitage and apply it to modern times. And that is, it is necessary at times. I would say most religious traditions have some kind of contemplative strand. So it is necessary at times to what we call turning the light of awareness around. And then returning to daily life informed by the quiet and by the stillness. So yes, absolutely, we have that as part of our practice. And what I'm seeing now in my communities is doing sustained meditation practice in our own dwelling places has invited this kind of an integration. It used to be people would go to the temple and have their contemplation and go home and have their activity. But now it's kind of an integration of the sacred and the everyday. And this is happening for people on an everyday basis. And they themselves, my community members, congregations, are expressing themselves that rather than having home life and temple life, they just have life unfolding right before them, which is really beautiful. So the model of hermitage actually serves in contemporary times, not necessarily to go away to a mountaintop, but to incorporate this contemplative stillness within every day.
The mountaintop could be your backyard at this point.
Yes, and I think it's important to note that this is for the common good, because in the contemplation we develop an awareness of the ways in which our behavior affects people, or the ways in which our own thinking might be pulling us astray, gain an awareness of the causes and conditions of our day-to-day life, and then that gives rise to the feeling of gratitude and generosity and compassion. So these we would call them common good experiences, have their roots in the contemplative.
Thank you for sharing, Gene. Ryan, we're glad to have you back. Glad we could see you. Is there anything from the faith tradition of yours where they talk about social distancing for our common good?
Yeah, definitely. And it gets really interesting because being a Christian pastor in a Unitarian kind of context, or a Unitarian, a Christian suit, you guys can ask me more about that in the Q&A. I'll try to explain it. But I get to dance between a variety of faith traditions. My leper answer got stolen earlier. That was a good one, by the way. That was good. So I'm gonna fly with the seat of my pants here, and step out. But yeah, we're coming off of the Lenten season, which is an experience of Jesus going into the wilderness, 40 days, and that parallels the Jewish tradition of Moses going into the wilderness.
Sure.
So there's a lot of biblical references there, but a lot of times it's hard to digest the biblical stuff. So I think probably the most powerful experience that I've found, I did my graduate work in seminary back in Louisville, Kentucky. And in Louisville, it's right across the river from a place called the Abbey of Gethsemane, which is where Thomas Merton studied. And Thomas Merton was famous for his work in contemplation, in social distancing, from kind of a more modern monastic perspective. And Merton actually was a Trappist monk, which is one of the most kind of socially distanced monks that you can kind of go with. He built a shed in the way back of the Abbey because he needed to kind of separate himself that much more. And I think what was so powerful about that, and where it ties in with this, is recognizing the value of balance. So there's a quote, and it's on the street corner in Louisville where I used to work, on a big sign, and it's Merton reflecting after having an epiphany, not in his shed in the back of an isolated abbey, but in the heart of a city. And that quote says, in Louisville at the corner of 4th and Walnut in the center of the shopping district, I was suddenly overwhelmed with the realization that I loved all these people, that they were mine and I was theirs, that we could not be alien to one another, even though we were total strangers. It was like waking up from a dream of separateness, of spurious self-isolation in a special world. This sense of liberation from an illusionary difference was such a relief and such a joy to me that I almost laughed out loud. I had the immense joy of being a man, a member of a race in which God himself became incarnate, as if the sorrows and stupidities of the human condition could overwhelm me. And now that I realize that, we are. And if only everybody could realize this, there's no way of telling people in that regard that they are walking around shining like the sun. And I think it's just that. It's coming out of isolation, but in different ways, like Zoom or so forth, where we realize that we are metaphysical. We're beyond the physical. And isolation is a physical thing. So it's stepping into those traditions in a new light and recognizing that, yes, we have a long history of isolating, and that's often in a very religious way, very ritualistic way. But then they were all one.
Well, thank you for sharing with us. I hope everybody was able to hear, because it went out during certain parts of it. But you shared a very powerful piece from Thomas Merton, and it really makes you think about what we do on the inside and what we do on the outside. And I really appreciate you sharing that. You know, as we look, we're all social beings. Our work really brings us in contact with people, but we have to do things differently at this point. And wondering if you could just share a little bit about how your faith community is staying connected, and is there anything that you're doing that you haven't done before, and is it working? And maybe we'll start with Pastor Barb. You mentioned a little bit about the hula hoops, but are there other things that your faith community is trying?
Well, I'm really excited about our involvement in a project here in the Watsonville area called Project Elderly Care. From the very beginning, there were two beautiful women that came together and said, we need to be in and on purpose about feeding 100 people right here in our neighborhood, right here. And if you were to drop a pebble in the middle of the pond, that pebble would have hit pretty much at Watsonville Church of the Nazarene. So from there, this ministry expanded now to the point that they had to take on a 25,000 square foot warehouse in the industrial area. And so as far as being on purpose, about finding a place to serve. It just seemed like those opportunities were placed before us, and it would have been an atrocity to have said no. So from there now, that little tiny ministry is now feeding 3,000 homes. That's on purpose, but that's not our purpose. That was the purpose of God, and we had to be available to be used. That is one of, I think, one of the most beautiful ways. That ministry has moved into realms way beyond my influence, and it is just incredible to see how God has brought these leaders to carry that one on. The other way that our church has specifically spoken into the neighborhood is, we're one of those crazy people passing out free masks. Everything is donated. All of the fabric comes in. We have people sitting at sewing machines from 9 to 3 every day. The community can drop in, pick up masks, sit down, and cut fabric, cut out pieces of elastic. If they don't do anything but make little sandwiches that will eventually become the masks. In other words, we all want to be a part of the solution. We all want to be a part of something that says, I care about my community. And so it was just a beautiful gift that mask ministry happened here. As far as, the Zoom services and the Facebook Live and all of those ways that we're still trying to stay connected with, our flock is a miserable mess for me. I am a technological dingbat, and so all of that has been this horrible struggle, and yet somehow there's still folks watching, and I think, I just don't understand how this is all going to work, and yet God finds a way to infiltrate living rooms and bedrooms and people still in jammies. And so, that's the beautiful thing about this sheltering in, is that we have reached out and are looking for faith areas. So, I don't know that we're really doing anything good or on purpose. It's just been this beautiful moving of God working over this little neighborhood and beyond. So I'm not the one, I'm a ding dong, believe me. It's all about the work of God moving here. So.
Well, it's great to hear how your congregation is involved in helping others. That's critically important, and still trying to stay connected among yourselves. Gene, how about you? Is there ways that your faith community is staying connected, and are you doing things you haven't done before?
We absolutely are. Everything has gone virtual. All of our morning and evening meditation, weekend meditation, classes, informal groups, ways of supporting one another. We have had to give up for now cooking for the homeless garden. And we have people at home sewing masks and distributing those masks to others as well. So our social engagement and social service has been greatly reduced, but we're still meeting with each other and following all of our classes, informal groups, and so on online. One of the touching things to me is that the younger people in our community have really stepped forward and are helping the elders download Zoom and figure out how to use Zoom, and doing this at a great distance. And the younger people are really becoming the foundation in a beautiful way. So they already have a sense of serving each other that's just built into our practice.
That's fantastic. You know, we always want young leaders to step up, and it's this interesting that it's taken something like this for people to step up in a new way.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say that the training itself of sitting quietly in meditation, it looks like each person is isolated in their own little rectangle on the screen, but there's definitely an awareness that we're connected. And there's definitely an awareness that this training of becoming still creates a sense of resilience and flexibility and capacity to meet these uncertain times in this disruption.
Thank you for sharing, Gene.
You're welcome.
How about Ryan, in the work that you do, you're involved with so many different communities. Are there things that you're trying that are new? Are they working, and is it helping people stay connected?
Yeah, definitely. We'll start. Gene, super sad that you guys are on a break from the Homeless Garden Project, but if anybody does get a chance, the cornbread that they make on Fridays is completely worth going and volunteering. I think that's a huge place to start, actually. The homeless community, work with the homeless community has been really interesting, looking at what isolation means in that context and how we're kind of like, yeah, making different things work. I think this whole thing is exposing really cool new opportunities. They're starting to transform hotels and motels into really neat homeless shelters. Different things like that are really taking off, which is exciting. So this is opening up doors for long-term solutions for problems that we've been dealing with for a long time. As far as our immediate community goes, I also live residential at a 14-person sobriety house. It's part of a program we have called Recovery, like recreational recovery. So we're looking at what sobriety means, and a lot of those meetings have gone to Zoom, so forth. From the church standpoint, I work with a lot of the pastors this side and that side of the hill for the Presbyterian Church, as well as the Unitarian Church. And we're actually seeing church attendance skyrocketing via Zoom. People like attending church in their pajamas. So one of the conversations that we're actually having is, well, shoot, how do we get people back into a sanctuary when this is all over? So yeah, that's actually, it's a little bit of a fear. I went out surfing with a couple of pastors the other day, and we were talking about just that. And honestly, a couple of us are really enjoying, yeah, on Sunday morning. Well, half of us is in our pajamas and the other half is in a collared shirt. So yeah, not all bad stuff. The Zoom thing's kind of neat, but it is creating some different things. The final point in that, my work with the county has been really interesting. So this Minister of Loneliness position is around enrolling new care providers and individuals in the community to kind of address senior isolation and special needs isolation. And because of the vulnerability of those populations, we've had to kind of cease work enrolling new individuals as care providers. But what's come of that is people recognizing the void in their life in isolated settings in general, and how isolated they really are, and certain populations live like this all the time. So they've actually switched my work in that regard to chaplaincy, which is really fun. So the county in that regard has, yeah, opened up some new doors to re-welcome faith back into the secular or government sector. So we're dancing across those scary lines of separation of church and state in that regard, which is exciting, and looking for new ways to do things long-term, not just immediate. So it's a lot of cool open doors, and yeah, I'll be really excited and curious to see where it all leads.
Well, it's great to hear, and it does make us all think about whether we're ever going to put on our regular clothes again and get together. But it's also good to see that with our programs, we're trying to be inclusive and try different things in different ways, because these are different times, and we can't do things the same way that we've always done. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Mother Tracy, is there things that your congregation or faith community is doing now that's different? Is it working? And is there things are you able to stay connected?
Yeah, so it's interesting, you know, the online services. I have a worship committee that assists me in planning worship, and we had a meeting last week and sort of we're debriefing, how is this going? And for some people it was, you know, wow, I'm really enjoying connecting with people through this medium and I'm just so glad it's happening. And for the other people it was like, it just seems so hollow, you know, it's not real, it's not in person, it's not, I can't, you know, touch my friends. And so there's a variety of experiences that people are having with it. But, you know, for me, the very first Sunday we canceled service was March 15th, I believe it was, which was the day before the shelter-in-place order went into effect. But we had made the decision to go ahead and cancel that Sunday for several reasons. One of which was we just are starting up a new community-wide youth program in Aptos. And we had planned to feature that youth program that Sunday. And our director was our scheduled preacher, and we were going to go over to Aptos Junior High and see this new space and a portable classroom that our program has there. And we realized that having a bunch of people from the church go over and touch things and get all in this other space was probably not the best idea. And we also are a host for the AFC's rotating shelter. And they had been there they were going to be there Saturday night, and our sexton, the person who cleans the place, was realizing there wasn't going to be enough time to completely desanitize after that group of people left before the 8 o'clock service people came in. So we said, let's just cancel for this Sunday and then we'll see what happens. And of course we haven't been back since. Sure. But we didn't have service at all that Sunday. I mean, that's the first time that I have been, you know, in a church where we just didn't have service. And part of that was it wasn't easy to take what we had been planning to do and switch it over that quickly to a virtual format. So I was over at the church that morning and I was sort of thinking, well, why does every single church have to do virtual services? You know, like we in the Episcopal Church, we're part of a national denomination. Why don't we all just go watch the National Cathedral service and we can really feel like we're one church and part of a whole community? Like, why do each church have to reinvent the wheel? And then I happened to be over in the sanctuary right around 10:30 at the time we would have had worship. And I was playing around with Facebook and trying to see how Facebook Live would work. And even though I'm on the older edge of a millennial, I had never done Facebook Live. And so I was sitting there playing around with it and I went live, and a couple people from my congregation happened to be on Facebook and see that. And they came on and they go, "Oh, hi, it's so good to see you on Sunday." And all of a sudden in that moment, I realized that it was about that connection, you know, it was about the connection with the people of my congregation, and to be able to have some sense that we're together. And watching the National Cathedral just doesn't do that. So it was interesting because our diocese did a service for Easter. And in some ways that was a suggestion that I made at a clergy meeting over Zoom was, hey, why do we have to reinvent the wheel? Let's have one diocesan-wide service. And our bishop, you know, did this lovely service, but it was just, there was something missing because we weren't doing it in our own communities, and it was lovely. And then we had a Zoom like coffee hour afterwards. But it's just really made me realize that it's not about the presentation and who has the most slick, you know, live streaming, which was something I used to think of as only for the big churches like the National Cathedral or Trinity Wall Street or these, you know, big major Episcopal churches, but that every church just being able to connect with each other and see each other's faces and interact in some way has been, you know, just a huge gift. And one of the things that we do in our service is we have a time of community prayers where we pray for people who have birthdays and anniversaries, that kind of thing, right? And so we've been broadcasting to YouTube, and I will ask people, is there anybody that has a birthday or anniversary that's not already listed in our bulletin, because we have a database that we, you know, print ahead of time. And we have the live chat feature on YouTube, and people are able to leave comments, and they'll say, oh, you know, my niece or my dog has a birthday this week or whatever, or, you know, my daughter is 9 months pregnant and, you know, we're praying that she's going to have a safe delivery in the midst of this pandemic. And so I'm able to incorporate those things in real time as, you know, I'm able to say prayers for people. So I think that's been an extremely meaningful connection. And the other thing that's been interesting about this whole process of going virtual is that it's created opportunities for people who are shut in and not able to get to church to engage in ways that they haven't before. So the wonderful thing about Zoom is that it does have that call-in feature. And so we are making sure that all of our folks who don't have computers have the number they can call in. And we've got maybe 1 or 2 of them that have done it so far. We keep trying to encourage them to, hey, you can come to church. You just pick up the phone. It can be a landline, and you just enter this number in. And we mail them a copy of the bulletin ahead of time. You know, everybody else, we just post it on the website and there's a link. But we're trying to do all that we can to engage people. And we had our clergy conference over Zoom last week, actually, for the whole diocese. And there was a woman there who has Lyme disease and has been socially isolated and not able to get out for years and is retired. And she was able to participate in our conference. And she said, you know, it's just such a gift that I haven't been able to be part of anything like this in so long. And so one of the things I'm hoping is that after we go back to in-person worship, that we will continue to maintain these ways to connect with people who can't be there. And then hopefully that also discourages people from coming to church when they are sick, because they know they can still connect and watch the service online and engage in that way. So how that's going to work to do virtual and in person at the same time will be interesting, because when I'm just doing virtual, I can just sit here like this close to the computer and look at what's happening and see who's leaving comments on the live chat. Whereas if you're in the middle of a big worship service, you can't engage in that same way. But that's been really interesting. And I think just seeing each other's faces, the virtual coffee hour that we call it, where we just get on Zoom and say hi to each other for 15 or 20 minutes after the service, has been great, to have a sense that we're just, you know, the kids in the church, a few of them will pop on and, you know, have their little coffee cup and say, yeah, I'm coming to coffee hour. And so it's just, you know, a lot of us have lived this way with our relatives who live all over the world and all over the country for years. And so it's like we're just having to learn how to adjust to do that with local people as well.
Yeah, you've all presented some really interesting ways in which you're trying to stay connected. I know as someone who does regular weekly meetings, we went to Facebook Live, and then we've gone to a telephone call because we find that people stay on longer, but it's completely faceless, and so it's hard to gauge faces on that. But we're better at being able to answer questions. So trying to find that right balance is challenging. I know at the Board of Supervisors, you can now be there. You can watch on Zoom. You can give comments over the phone. You can send in through email. It's a whole new way in which we're trying to communicate. So I appreciate all the work that everybody's doing. You know, and so this technology has enabled us to stay connected and maybe even find some new connections, as has been pointed out. It still lacks that ability for the human touch. And I'm wondering if the technology can't provide that solution for the physical connections. Does your faith provide anything to offer? Is there a way in which this is building a deeper spiritual connection? I thought I'd ask Gene first. Are you finding that?
Well, there definitely is a kind of flatness to the technology. That's almost minimizing it. And there's a flatness to the sound of the technology. The sound is just coming from one little spot. So in that way, the sensory part of it is very unsatisfying. But the connection part, echoing what Mother Tracy has said, the connection part of individuals meeting each other, not on the grand scale at the diocese level, but at, you know, the individual community level, seems to matter more at this point. And we even have people phone calling in to sit zazen, so they're on a silent phone, and yet they know they're in companionship with other people who are also in silence. And that silent phone contact seems to matter.
Sure.
And interestingly, a pleasant surprise to me, you know, lives change and people move away and or have illness. People who have moved across the country are able to come back to sit in meditation or to sit for lecture or class and enjoy each other's company in a way that they wouldn't be able to. And I see, for example, we're on at early in the morning, 5:45 in the morning, but I see people whose rooms are completely lit up, and well, where are you? Oh, I'm in Philadelphia. or, oh, I'm in Texas, you know. So the community, the pleasant surprise of this is that what would seem to be an intimate community is actually quite broad. So this reinforces the teachings of our school, and that is that what it appears to be is only a small part of the whole picture.
That's great, and I would have never anticipated that someone would be doing silent meditation together on the phone. But it's I have a friend who said that before this would dial up his daughter, or his daughter would dial up him, and they would both be sitting and reading together over FaceTime, even though they would only occasionally talk to each other, but they were still in the same room. It felt like. Nice. So I can understand that.
And we've also recently had an international experience in which a monk in Japan produced a video with audio of himself singing one of our chants with background music. And he did this back in November before there was illness on the planet in this way, and produced it just himself on the screen. And just last month produced the same video with audio, and hundreds of other monks and nuns coming in and fading out with the same chant at the same pace. And he opened this to the entire international community. So now on the screen, thousands of people all over the world are coming and going with the same chant and the same music. It's really, it has expanded my view of community.
Well, that's fantastic. That's great to hear. Ryan, how about in your work? Have you found that this new technology has helped connect people better, or increase that spirituality connection, even if we can't have the human touch?
Yeah, definitely. It goes back to kind of what I was saying at first around moving from this idea of physical to metaphysical. And I think it's a false notion over time that the church is actually a box, that the church is a brick and mortar building. That's what we say in the Christian church. That's the little C church. But the big C church is a feeling. It's an experience. It's an energy. I actually spent my afternoon yesterday over at the land of the Buddha, heading forth and doing some hiking. And I love one of the Sanskrit words for in tradition is Maya, and it's like this false illusion that we're disconnected. So I think what this is really helping us to do is look at what we thought was disconnection and isolation in the past, and what we thought was church in the past, or fellowship in general, and kind of reevaluate that. So it's a lot of my work actually deals with the difference between being alone and being in a state of solitude. And I think that's a really important aspect to look at when you're looking at faith and isolation, is you can be in solitude and very, very fulfilled, even though you are physically alone. That's a beautiful spiritual level that we can achieve, versus you can be in a room full of people that are a little more superficial in connection, and you don't have that deep state, but you're amongst a ton of people and very lonely. So yeah, it's all making us realize the kind of what is physical, what is isolation, what is solitude, what is loneliness, and at the end of the day, what are we yearning for? And that's kind of going back to that Merton thing. Are we in need at that time to distance ourselves into a shed in the back of a distant monastery, or are we in need of really formative social connection?
Yeah, well, I love the concept of thinking about what our faith means outside the physical structure. I think that's an always helpful discussion, and to really think about the different times where we need to do different things. So I appreciate your perspective, Brian. I really do. Mother Tracy, how about you? Have you found this technology has helped bring any people closer, or new ways to connect to their spirituality?
Well, I think when we come to this question about human touch and how technology falls short in that regard, the Sunday after Easter, I was as I was preparing to preach for the virtual service, in the Revised Common Lectionary, which many different denominations use to determine what scriptures are read on each Sunday, the Sunday after Easter is always the Sunday of Doubting Thomas. And Thomas saying, you know, everybody says, oh yeah, we saw Jesus, he's alive. And Thomas is like, yeah, okay, until I see it myself and touch him, you know, I'm not going to believe that. And I have preached on that passage before in several different contexts, always focusing on physical touch, right? Like that, you know, Thomas wants to touch Jesus, and that we can touch the body of Christ in one another, and because we are now the body of Christ. And so when we pass the peace and we shake hands, we are touching the body of Christ. When we receive communion, which is central to our church, in the Episcopal Church, we have communion, the Holy Eucharist, every Sunday. We are receiving the body of Christ. And so here I was sitting like, well, what do I say about this passage now? We can't do any of that. And it just really made me very sad, because it made me realize all the ways in which this technology falls short. And especially for us as Episcopalians, where many people come to the Episcopal Church because of our weekly communion. And that's the thing that draws them over another denomination of Christianity where communion is not celebrated as frequently. It's like, you'll hear people say, I came back for the Eucharist, you know? And so that's really central to our piety, to not have been able to do that for 2 months now, and to have not been able to have Eucharist on Easter is just, you know, we kind of don't know what to do with ourselves. And in the early days, you know, some of the clergy on a conference call were talking about, well, you know, could we take little individually wrapped wafers and bless them and then send them in the mail to people? And, you know, and there were just all these creative ideas that they're trying to figure out, how could we still make this happen? And the bottom line is, until we have testing where the clergy know we're not infected, how do we know we're not just passing it all out to everybody if we touch stuff and give it to other people? So, but that's been a really difficult thing. And I think, you know, the place I came to in that sermon that day was, you know, this is an invitation for us to remember that, you know, we, as Ryan was saying, get to that metaphysical plane of that, like, you know, everything on this earth is limited, and everything, even the sacraments, which are by nature physical, and are so important to us and our particular theology, you know, God is not limited to the sacraments, even though we turn to those as this is our way that we know that God is present to us. That's not the only way that God can be present to you. And if we say that as Christians, when we were baptized, that Christ dwells in us, then Christ is in us all the time. And we don't have to take communion to take Christ's presence into us. And so we've been doing virtually a prayer for what is called spiritual communion. And it comes from the ancient church tradition of when you can't be physically present, it's a prayer that you say to kind of unite yourself spiritually with the places where the Eucharist is being celebrated somewhere out there in the world. And it's a prayer that reminds us that we are never separated from God. We are never separated from Christ. He is within us all the time. And so I think that for a tradition that really relies on the physical, and the physical is so important to us in how we worship, for me, it's been a real invitation to go more interior and to remember that that's with me all the time. I can access that anytime I want. And it's still not the same, but I think it is inviting us into a deeper spiritual practice that I know I can't say that I've, you know, had any huge new epiphanies because of it. And I still want to get back together and have communion with people, but it's making me think and reflect about that interior life in a way that I hadn't when the physical touch and the physical interaction way of expressing my faith was so easily accessible. So it was like, it was easy to rely on that, and that was it, versus thinking about that deeper spiritual thing that it's supposed to be leading you towards. So it's been a very interesting theological exploration as to what is the purpose of the physical, and how essential is it really to us?
Yeah, a new level of understanding your own faith. It becomes very important. And
absolutely.
And what is it that you need to touch, and what is it that you need to believe, and how do you practice it? Those are really good points that you brought up, and it really makes us all think. Pastor Barb, you talked a little bit that you're using the technology, but it's challenging at times. But have you found that it also is helped in terms of deepening anybody's spiritual connections, or have you found other ways to make that happen?
You know, it's interesting. The I guess the residual of having the technology at your fingertips and then being able to refer back to it can somewhat be a curse or a blessing. And what I have found, however, is that folks who have, were always a Sunday morning worker, not able to attend a service, can now reach in and watch that service because it has been recorded or it has been archived somewhere. And then what I have also found because of that, one beautiful lady in particular has this is now the second Sunday in a row, has said, I went back and I re-listened because there were some parts that I knew I needed to catch again. I knew God was saying something to me and I needed to hear it again. And so for that, there is now a beautiful opportunity to go back and be encouraged once again by scripture or by the message being given, and then to be encouraged by how God is speaking through that scripture. And you can go back and replay those. And even if it's, some of those areas of life where we're really being challenged, maybe it is good to kind of hear that, yep, you are being challenged in this. However, I've got you. There isn't any weapon formed against you that I can't overcome. And you can hear that again and again. So I think in that way, there's some positivity there. The other thing is that it also allows family members now to become the ministers. So now you will have generally in any household that hierarchy, and it is very much the same in a spiritual hierarchy as well. Most of the time in our family with 2 Bible college students in the house, it was our, teenager that had the most insight. And so I think too that different roles are being kind of exposed within our nucleus. And I have also been reminded that there are, I guess, little alerts in some homes. Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, church starts in 10 minutes. And so, now the kids are kind of rallying behind and
Sure.
different people are stepping up to say, let's join in this together. So.
Yeah, no, and it brings up the point that in all of our faith traditions, there have been times of oppression and where you haven't had resources and you have to count on what you've got in order to keep things going. And so we're all seeing that a little bit. Technology is just one tool, but it's we're all thinking of new ways to connect spiritually and build that both internally within our family structures or within our congregations. So appreciate everybody sharing how they're working this technology. We're going to give a chance for people to ask questions, and if people want to ask questions, they can use the Q&A feature on their Zoom, and we'll be able to answer some of those questions. I encourage people to send them in. I just want to ask you all just a final question before we get to those questions from the audience is we're here at the library, and so in the library we think of books, and are there things that you would recommend that is books or other resources that would be relevant to the discussion of separation and connection within your faith or within any faith? Maybe Pastor Barb, I'm not sure if you want to go first.
Sure.
Is there things that you would recommend? And I know the library is going to try to have these resources available at the end of the series. but it'd be great to be able to share that now.
Absolutely. You know, one of the most basic resources that hit store shelves years and years ago were the 5 love languages. It is just a simple description of how each one of us is truly wired to not only accept love, however, how to extend it as well. And what that does is places most every single person into a top category, and they vary in anything from giving gifts to receiving gifts to words of affirmation. However, the one that really I think is impacted most of all in this is the physical touch. And so when we see that as a vital part of how some people are made and wired, that is how they will accept it or even give it, we have to find ways at that point to kind of compensate in there. And one of the things that we attempted to do as instructors, my husband and I would offer participants in these classes different ways in which you can be in physical touch with someone and yet be in Afghanistan and someone be in another part of the country. Or in this case, what is applicable here, of course, is this shelter in place. Something as simple as spraying a little cologne on a little hanky and dropping it in the mail. That is a physical touch. That smell will, of course, connect us to Grandma or Aunt Betty or Uncle George and his crazy, Irish Spring soap smell. Those, and we have to begin to find ways to be creative. Maybe it is, a teddy bear that you go to the store, you pick it up with gloves, you video the whole thing, and then you drop it in the bag and you put a couple of stamps on it and you throw it in the mail. They know you were thinking of them. Right. Physical touch, we know just from, the psychological evaluation done, is vital. And so we have to now begin to find other ways to pull in that physical touch when in its absence. And it can be our smell, it can be our sight, it can be a little video with your voice, as long as you can at least begin to relate to what it would feel like to be in that physical moment.
Well, that's fantastic. Those are some really great suggestion and a great resource, the 5 love languages. That's something that I'll look for. How about you, Ryan? Is there any resources that you would recommend in terms of the separation and connection during these unusual times?
Yeah, definitely. I love the 5 love languages. Another one in that kind of same realm is the 4 agreements. That was kind of a while back. So like grateful Henry David opportunity right now to dive in with. A story of diving into the woods and what it was like to isolate in his context. And then a self plug. I love doing self plugs. A couple weeks or a couple months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, I wrote a children's book with one of our special needs guys. So this is Wally the Wave. We actually did a reading and a shared art project at the library when we first put it out. But the whole context is it's got a chapter for adults on ways to look at inclusivity across various barriers, physical, social, economical, faith, etc., on how to work with that with your youth. The cool thing about the book was we co-illustrated. It was me and a 22-year-old with severe cerebral palsy that is non-vocal. So if you guys jump on my website, there's a free PDF of it, as well as a free video of the two of us, my cerebral palsy buddy Noah and I, doing a dramatic reading. So you guys can take a look. It's just sweatysheep.com. So we love to share that with everybody. I think the library actually has a couple hard copies, and you can shoot me a message. Actually, you can order a hard copy offline. But and then finally, it's coming up. I was just telling the library crew the other day. So my little shelter-in-place activity is I have been writing a novel. So I'm on page like 115, I think I hit this morning. So look for that soon. That's actually around communication and so forth as well. Yeah, finally, on my personal reading list, I just finished Hermann Hesse Steppenwolf. That's a really cool one to look at this time, because it deals with aspects of depression, as well as recognizing the multiple persons within our own self, within our own being. So a really fun read for anybody into that whole thing. Yeah, tons of good reading. No reason for YouTube.
And Ron, we have there's been some connection issues with you. I just want to make sure you talked about a book at the beginning called The Four Agreements.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, can you guys hear me all right? The Four Agreements was in the same time frame and so forth, and same genre as the Five Love Languages.
Okay, great. Well, look forward to looking at those books, and it's great to use this time where we're woodshedding to actually work on a new piece of creativity. So thank you for that. We'll all look for that when that comes out. How about you, Mother Tracy? Is there resources or books that you would recommend around these issues about separation and connection?
I was thinking of the first couple of things that came to mind for me. Ryan mentioned Thomas Merton earlier, and I think pretty much anything by Thomas Merton. Thoughts in Solitude, anyone? Would be a great one. Another one is Kathleen Norris, a book called The Cloister Walk, about her spending time living in a monastic situation, even though she was a married person who had a life out in the world, but went, and experienced that life. And it was kind of a memoir. And then pretty much anything by Thomas Keating, who was the Roman Catholic monk who created or promoted the concept of centering prayer, which is really just silent contemplative practice in the Christian tradition. I mean, he didn't really create it. He sort of reclaimed it from the ancient text. And he writes a lot about connecting with that interior self. And if you never have experienced centering prayer or any kind of meditation, he's a good place to get started if you're looking for a Christian perspective and a way into that. I personally am very much an extrovert, and I never thought I would be able to do silent meditation, but I haven't been keeping up with it as much as I should have. But for a while, I actually had a regular silent meditation practice, actually studying with a Buddhist teacher when I lived back in Nashville, doing loving kindness or metta meditation. So I also recommend Sharon Salzberg's book, Loving Kindness, which is another great introduction to contemplative practice.
That sounds like a great bookshelf of books for us to check out. I really appreciate that. And as you mentioned, Thomas Merton always has some good things to say. So I'll have to look at his books once again as well. How about you, Eugene? Are there books or resources that you would recommend? And we've got a number of questions from people to know whether the chant that you talked about is that available for people to see or participate in?
Well, behind me, there are hundreds of books, and there are literally thousands of books that are commentaries and definitely worth reading. And almost all of them will have something in them about interconnection, because that's one of the core teachings of the Buddha, and the ways in which we can work with transience and unpredictability. Also at this time, two of the core teachings. So you would think that I'm going to recommend a Buddhist book, but I'm not. I'm going to recommend a very secular book And if I'm permitted, I'll put it up as a screen share for just a moment.
I'm not sure you can, but
Oops, nope, it's disabled. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do screen share the old-fashioned way. And the book is called Thinking Fast and Slow. The author's name is Daniel Kahneman. I'll tell you a little bit about this book and this author. He's a psychologist and a Nobel economist and statistician. And this is the most brilliant book I've ever found about how the human mind works and the ways in which we can lead ourselves astray by believing things based on partial observation and our tendency to see what we want to see, basically, instead of what's actually true. So one of the reasons I'm recommending this book is that even though we can't touch each other at this time, this is a perfect book for book clubs. It's got short chapters. The examples in it are completely understandable for organizations, for families, for workplaces of any kind. And there are questions at the end of every chapter to engage with each other and deepen our understanding. Fabulous book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Daniel Kahneman.
Great. And the question about the chants that you talked about, are they available on YouTube or other places?
The artist at this time is still producing the one that has thousands of voices. And I could forward it to our facilitators at the library when it becomes available.
That would be great. That would be one of the resources that we've got a number of people from all over the world. We've had questions from all over the world, and they've asked about that. Mother Tracy, you wanted to add something after hearing his book club selection.
Yeah. Actually, I just remembered another book that I think I'd like to recommend that would perhaps be particularly relevant during this time, and that is, as many of us are spending more and more time outside and trying to connect with nature, and it's been one of the ways that sort of we maintain our sanity in terms of being cooped up in the house all day. I went to seminary at the University of the South, Sewanee, Tennessee, and in the undergraduate university there's a biologist named David Haskell, Haskell, who has written a number of books, but the one I'm particularly recommending is called The Forest Unseen. And he went to like 1 square meter, he's British or something, so he uses these British terms, 1 square meter of space in the forest, the same spot every day for a year. And he kept like notes and wrote about it. And each chapter is on, like one of them is there's a golf course nearby, and there's, a golf ball that winds up in the middle of his little thing. And so he reflects for a whole chapter on the golf ball and how it's going to decompose and what's going to happen and how the ants are crawling over it and whatever. But it's as Gene was saying, much more of a secular kind of context, but I found it to be a deeply, deeply spiritual book in the sense of being present in the moment, noticing what's around you, and just the interconnectedness of all life. It's just a really remarkable book, and also great for book groups because each chapter has a different topic or a different theme, and he'll take you into all kinds of intricate biological details that, as a non-scientist, was fascinating for me to learn. Like the fact that sirens are based on the sound of a wolf's howl, because we're biologically wired to be on alert when we hear a wolf howling because it was one of our predators. Little fun things like that. And it's a great book, The Forest Unseen by David Haskell.
It's a great suggestion. Really appreciate that. Appreciate all the suggestions. Pastor Barb talked about this a little bit, about ways in which we can keep connection and spirituality through sense of smell. And I'm wondering whether anyone else, is there a way in which the senses could be used to increase the spiritual connection during these times when we can't be in the church or the temple or the togetherness? Is there anybody who'd like to try to answer that question? Gene?
I would imagine that most places of worship burn something or other at various times. In a Zen temple, we burn incense, and the incense is purchasable. People are commenting to me that as soon as they smell that, they're kind of instantly transported to the to the larger temple, as Ryan called it earlier, the church with a bigger C. You know, the sense of smell transports us probably more than anything.
Also, do you think that there may be folks who have been religious or spiritual in the past, and now when they've had this contemplative time, would like to reconnect? Is there suggestions or tools or ways in which the door is open to those people who are looking to reconnect to their own spiritual practice? Anyone like to try Mother Tracy and then Pastor Barb?
Yeah, I've been very intentional about saying, I always do in the in-person service, but saying a word of welcome to visitors in our virtual service, and encouraging people to sign up on our website for our e-news, which we put out once a week, and it includes all the links to all of our Zoom events. And, you know, it's an easy time to be an observer. But I keep encouraging people to, you know, if you're out there watching and you want to connect, you know, please come to our virtual coffee hour. We'd love to meet you. You know, there are a few people in the congregation who are newer, and someone said to me, well, I don't feel like I want to go to the coffee hour because people don't know me. And so it's like, and I'm like, but that's exactly why you should come, because people don't know you and we want to get to know you, and we can still form relationships during this time when we are so physically separated. And you know, I mean, it's an interesting thing. Somewhere around the 90s, when email became more common, a lot of people reconnected with friends or even estranged family members through email and connection in that way. And so for some people that are more introverted, this actually might be a more comfortable way of engaging with more of a physical distance. And, you know, you can come to a Zoom meeting and not have to worry about anybody getting too close to you or anything, and just, you know, have an opportunity to interact with people. So just trying to encourage people to engage and not just to be observers, but it is certainly an unprecedented time, like Gene was saying earlier, for people to be able to connect from a variety of places all over the world. And, you know, anyway, I'll be quiet now because other people have things to say.
Pastor Barb, you wanted to add something about those who are looking to connect with their spirituality again during these times of separation.
Exactly, and thank you. You know, I have seen over the course of ministry that within the church, it is the most segregated place in America is Saturday or Sunday services. And I think now more than ever, we are finding that that's not so. In other words, there is now a freedom. I don't have to be concerned about what others might say if I tune into XYZ church service, and people are more and more and more tuning into different faith groups as well. And I think the other thing too is that unfortunately, you know, we can look at the decline of attendance across the board, no matter what the faith group is for the most part. And, you know, you couple that with segregation with the fact that somewhere along the line, somebody in that church shot the wounded. Someone came in wounded and we judged them horribly. We were not kind and compassionate to them. And with that, anyone would immediately become defensive and then withdraw themselves from any future interaction. Well, I think now with this technology, I can re-engage as you know, someone who is tuning in on Sunday morning and has been hurt by whatever reason. They now have an opportunity to re-engage and to perhaps maybe have a different type of connection where they can truly see the love of Jesus and not the goofiness of somebody. And so I love that
the wounded can return, and the segregated can feel welcomed.
We only have just a few more minutes left, and I wanted just to sort of end with a question about one day this shelter in place is going to be over, and we're going to be allowed to meet in congregation once again. What can we do to sort of promote that spiritual connection, but also that well-being and connectedness that we know we're missing now? What is it that we can do from each one of our places to help build community once this unusual time is over? Pastor Barb says, what do you?
I am so excited. I cannot wait for them to lift this shelter in place, because I'm going to start at the beginning of Pinto Lake, and I am going to close Green Valley Road all the way up to the other entrance of Pinto Lake. You won't have any other choice but to just hang out and party with God and his people. I am going to throw a huge party. And
right.
that is a couple of things. And I know every church is going to do that. I'm not exclusive in that. I think what we're really saying, for me anyway, is now that this is over, I give you permission to come back, be real, be broken, and be included in a huge family that is, oh, by the way, also broken, but really striving to be better Watsonvilleites. And I think that's what or Santa Cruzian Countyers, whatever that might be. In other words, what can we do? And that is to engage immediately back into your faith group, and to do it deeply, knowing there are absolute dingbats out there who are going to step on your toes and kick you in the shin, but that we weren't called to get our feelings hurt every time somebody stepped on our shoes when we're dancing. So I think for us and for our family here, it is going to be re-engaging and pulling all of those people in and saying, I saw you through that little camera, and we want you to be a part of this family here.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing, Pastor Barb. Ryan, what do you think coming out of this shelter in place about connectedness and well-being?
Definitely. All right. So, Barb, I'm sorry, I'm going to play the dingbat role there. I'm kind of the opposite. I'm a very big extrovert. I'm actually an incredible introvert. Part of me has loved the shelter in place because it's given me permission to retreat to myself and to accept that I don't necessarily love big social gatherings. So from that perspective, like I said, I work and I head up a sobriety home in town. And what we recognize is you can't jump out of isolation right back into to the normal, quote unquote, normal existence. There never was a norm, but what we do as a transitional home is just that. It's looking at individuals that are coming out of isolated experiences and what stepping stone is needed in order to step back in. I also alluded in the previous comments to this being an opportunity to address some deficits and some things in the past that we didn't necessarily see. I think just by jumping back in and trying to go back to a social norm that we had, we're forgetting the opportunity that this has given us to look at things like homelessness, to look at things like isolation in terms of seniors, that this is just another day for them. This is how they live their life. So yeah, I'm going to kind of take the other role and say that I think what we really need is a really intentional reentry process. Coming out of this isolation experience. And I really encourage people in these weeks to come where we're looking at the reentry to take these final weeks of social isolation and recognize where the emptiness and void is in your life and start to prepare yourself and really kind of like speak to yourself of how you need to step out of that beyond COVID-19, just as a person, as a beautiful spiritual entity.
Thank you for sharing, and it sort of represents two different wings of an important part of spirituality, but both is super important. Gene, anything that you see coming out of this to be able to help encourage well-being, connectedness, spirituality?
Well, I think we'll probably take the middle path of what Pastor Barb and Ryan have said, that's something like a hybrid version at our temple, allowing a certain amount of the Zoom to continue for those who might feel hesitant to return so quickly or unable to return. And for those who are ready to go full forward, the temple doors will be wide open for them. I think the most important thing is for all of us kind of planet-wide to say, what have we learned in this time? You know, priorities have become reordered. What we focus on has perhaps become a little bit more simplified. And this is what I hope that we carry forward into the future.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for sharing. So Mother Tracy, you'll get the last word on this subject about what we do coming out of this to increase connection and spirituality.
Well, I'm actually serving on just finished serving on a task force for the diocese, the Episcopal Diocese of El Camino Real, about reentry. And we're releasing a plan this week. And what we found is the more research we do, the longer we realize it's going to be before we are in person again. And in the phases that the state and county have set up, we're still in phase 1, which is shelter in place. And essentially churches are not allowed to regather until phase 3. So phase 2 allows for more economic, interactions, but less, physical gatherings. So as we started looking at the restrictions, for instance, no singing, because singing is one of the most effective ways to spread things by spitting air out very fast. No singing. How are you going to discourage people from staying afterwards and talking to each other, which is exactly what we do at church. The more we started to think about these things, the more many of us on this task force said, well, what's the point? Why go back? If you want to stand 6 feet apart from people and wear masks, you can go to Trader Joe's, so if we aren't able to do church in the way that we are used to doing church, which is that physical being in connection, then perhaps staying in this virtual connection world longer may be the way to go, and possibly looking at creating smaller groups, stable groups, home groups, and kind of returning to that home church idea where, you get together with the same 10 people and maybe you watch the broadcast that the church is doing together. So you have little pods of people that are gathering, but not everybody coming right back to the main church building. So I think it's going to look different. And what I've realized in serving on this task force is that it's going to be very gradual. I think a lot of us pictured, at one point, maybe by Easter we'll all just be back in church and happy Easter. But as when we come back to church, it's going to be 10 people at a time, separated, not able to touch each other. So it's not going to be just show back up and hug everybody and jump up and down and the way that a lot of us were picturing being able to return to church. So and that I think will be even harder because, seeing people after 2 months, you're going to want to hug them. So it's like, I'd almost rather not be in person than be in person and told I can't touch them, Right. So as an extrovert, so it'll be an interesting, slow negotiated process. And I think that we'll be relying on a lot of the tools from this virtual time to help us to stay connected when the physical is not going to be very fulfilling, I think, probably for quite a while.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. You're probably very right that this isn't going to be happening quickly, and that it'll be happening in stages as we seek to continue to slow the spread of the disease in our community. But I know that during these difficult times where we're separated, our faith becomes very important. And I really appreciate being able to spend this time with the four of you and community members to talk about spirituality during these difficult times. I want to thank the Santa Cruz Public Library as well for sponsoring the discussion and bringing us all together. The library is always a critical institution in our community, and it helps build community. And I just appreciate the leadership of the library, who's taken upon themselves to figure out new ways to use the institution to connect people together. And as we have all found out within our own congregations or community, it's important to find those ways, and I just want to thank the library for doing it. Thank you all for participating in this great discussion, and we'll hear a few things from the library, I think, here at the end.
Well, on behalf of the Santa Cruz Public Libraries and the Watsonville Public Library, I'd like to thank everyone for taking time out of your day to join us for part 3 of our Shelter in Faith series. We will be posting the book recommendations and the recording soon, and we'd invite you to join us for the final part in the series, Meaning and Productivity, this Wednesday. You'll register for that session the same way you did for this one, santacruzpl.org. And thank you to all of our panelists for sharing your time, your experience, and your intellect with all of us. And finally, thank you to Supervisor Leopold for your moderation. Take care, everyone, and thank you so much.